بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه وبركاته عليه. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. As we continue the explanation of Al-Hamawiyyah or Fatwa Al-Hamawiyyah Al-Kubra by the great Imam Taqiyuddin Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam ibn Taymiyyah Al-Harrani Al-Dimashqi Rahimahullah, died 728 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. As you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, that he was explaining all the different books that has clarified and defended the proper belief in which the people who cling to it will be victorious and successful. Those blessed treaties to this day are books you'll find that the ulama of the Sunnah, especially these days that we live in, have put forth great efforts in teaching these books, educating the Muslimin by these books, knowing and stressing its importance for one's survival of this world, rahmatullahi, showing and stressing its importance of how the Muslimin or the Muslims all over the world, if they cling to this belief, that it will be the reason for their happiness. It will be a reason for their happiness in this world as well as in the hereafter. Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah clarifies those tremendous books, those blessed books to this day that have a positive, great impact on the Muslims all over the world. And the reason for their atrocities that have befallen them or have afflicted them is due to their abandonment of these books. These books that contain in it the authentic sunnah of our Prophet ﷺ and the proper creed. From those books you'll find, Ya Ma'ashar Ikhwah, as we stop last class, Shaykh al-Islam mentioned, وَقَبْلَ ذَلك, he says, As-Sunnah, Shaykh al-Islam says, clarifying the title of these books, he said, وَقَبْلَ ذَلك As-Sunnah لِعَبْدِ ibn Ahmad. He said, before that, there was a book entitled As-Sunnah by Abdullah ibn Ahmad, who was the son of Imam Ahmad. And that book is still copied to this day, it's matbu'ah. That book called As-Sunnah by Abdullah ibn Ahmad to this day is matbu'ah. It's still copied and is attainable in those maktabat, in those libraries in which this book is sold. So that's from those books. It's As-Sunnah by Abdullah ibn Ahmad, which was the son of the great Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Imam Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Then you'll find another book from the students of Imam Ahmad. And his name was Abu Bakr ibn al-Athram. Abu Bakr ibn al-Athram, who was also from the great Imam of this religion. And he was also from the students of Shaykh al-Islam, or if you want to say Imam Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah. His name was Ahmad. His kunya was Abu Bakr, which he was known for, but his name was Ahmad also. And he was the student of Imam Ahmad. You'll find that he has certain books in the topic of what they call ilal, hidden weaknesses and chains of narrations. Hidden weaknesses that are in chains, those narrations that have been conveyed in the authentic Sunnah. And he also has a book in the topic of what they call Nasikh wal Mansukh, which is also a science that needs to be taught. I think that it's never been taught ever in the West here. The topic of Nasikh wal Mansukh, which is very important science. But due to the fact that we can never get past the fundamentals, we can never excel to the point where we can take on and learn those other sciences. Because we also have to keep everything basic all the time. Everything has to stick to basics. And we have to keep babying the people, until we often have to stick to those affairs where we can never excel to the other arenas. So you'll find there's a science called Nasikh wal Mansukh. The affairs that are tied in with the religion, especially in the Book of Allah, where certain verses in the book was Nasikh and Mansukh, where there were verses that were abrogated and something else came as a text and it abrogated it. So it's called Nasikh wal Mansukh. The abrogation and the thing or the verse or certain sunnah that were abrogated, whether it be in the Book of Allah or in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So you'll find that Abu Bakr ibn Afram, in this book called As-Sunnah, he had these treaties. But keep in mind, like we said, he was a student of who, everyone? Al-Imam Ahmad, Abu Bakr ibn al-Afram. Also, you have another book, as Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, As-Sunnah by Hanbal. Hanbal. Who's Hanbal? Is it Imam Ahmad? Or is this his father? No. It was his cousin. It was Ibn Am. If you want to say, it was his paternal cousin from the father's side. It was his son of his paternal uncle. Hanbal. Ibn Am al-Imam Ahmad. That was, if you want to say, as we say in English, that was his paternal cousin or cousin from his father's side or his uncle's side, or the children of his paternal uncle. So you'll find there was a sunnah by Hanbal. Also, if you look at your books, Al-Marudhi, not Al-Marwadhi, Al-Marudhi. Abu Bakr, his name was also Al-Marudhi, where he was also from the students, right? He was from the greatest students of Imam Ahmad. So you find that a lot of these books were entitled by these refutations against the Jahmiyyah, clarifying what is the correct aqidah. A lot of them were from the students of Imam Ahmad. As we just mentioned, his son, Imam Ahmad's son, Abdullah. Like we said, that book is still around. Also, Abu Bakr bin Afram, where his name was also Ahmad. Also, Sunnah by his uncle, Hanbal, which is also entitled As-Sunnah. Then you have Abu Bakr al-Marudhi. Abu Bakr al-Marudhi, the great Imam, was from the greatest students of Imam Ahmad. He also has a book called As-Sunnah. And I don't know if it's matbu'ah, but I have to find it, inshallah, whether or not it's still around. I can't necessarily come to the top of my head of where I have it. I don't think it is, that I have it in my library, but the majority of these books that you see here, I have it. By the fadl of Allah, these books I have. You have As-Sunnah by Imam Ahmad, As-Sunnah from his students. From them is Al-Khallab, As-Sunnah by Ibn Khallab. It's also matbu', it's also copies in 4 volumes. That book is around, and that's another book that hasn't been taught. It's a tremendous book. Sunnah by Ibn Khallab is a great book. There's a lot of books out there that have not been taught, and they are tremendous as far as clarifying the correct belief of the Muslim and clarifying the correct aqidah, and it brings the treasures. The treasures, hidden treasures in the Quran that a lot of people are not aware of. Especially in that book called As-Sunnah by Ibn Khallab. For example, there's a benefit by Sunnah Ibn Khallab that what is the proof that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of affairs before they take place? What is the proof in the Quran? There's a verse in the Quran, clearly. I'll say it quickly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this book of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah Ta'ala says, this is Sunnah ibn Khalal. This is to let you know the type of treasures that these books contain. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says in his book, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً قالوا أتجعل فيها ما يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك قال إني أعلم ما لا تعلمون. Allah Ta'ala says in his book that your Lord said to the angels, verily I will make in the earth a Khalifa. You'll find that the ulama said, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, based upon this ayah, notice Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala said He's going to make in the earth a Khalifa. Adam was already in paradise. He was in Jannat al-Khuld. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala knew that Adam was going to do something that would necessitate him being exiled and put on the earth. That's why He said to the angels, I want to make in the earth a Khalifa. Knowing that He had knowledge that Adam was going to do something that would necessitate his exile, where he would have to be put in this dunya. And that's why the angel said, will you make in it who will corrupt it, shed blood, and cause or wreak havoc in the earth, or corruption in the earth, and we glorify you, and venerate your praise to the end of that. You'll find that they say Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala had knowledge, full awareness that Adam was going to do something that would necessitate that he would be exiled and made as a Khalifa in the earth for the human beings. Because he was what? He was in paradise, or he was in Jannatul Khuld. That was from the different examples to let you know that Allah Ta'ala has knowledge of affairs before they take place, before they happen, which is a refutation against the Ghulat from the Qadariyah. The Ghulat from the Qadariyah, or the first Qadariyah, who was from Ma'bad al-Juhni Ghinan al-Dimashqi. You'll find that the ulama of the past declared them to be kuffar. A lot of people don't realize that. The first Qadariyah were declared to be kuffar because they negated a belief that was ma'loom in the deen al-darura. That was something that was extremely, had to be known in religion by extreme dire necessity, which is that our Lord had knowledge of affairs before they happened. And to say that Allah does not have that is ascribing to our Lord a great deficiency, which is deficiency in knowledge, which is to let you know that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala as a deity is incomplete. So based upon that, the early Qadariyah were declared to be what? Kuffar. The early ones. Because of their negation that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala does not have knowledge, nor does He have affairs written down in anything before they take place. But anyway, Abu Bakr ibn Khalal in his book called Sunnah clarified these affairs and bringing out ayat by bringing these treasures in which a person might read these verses while he's standing in salah, not realizing what they necessitate. So you read that verse, and that necessitates that our Lord has knowledge of affairs before they what? Before they happen. Is it clear, everyone? Right. So this is just a quick example. There's a lot of benefits that's in these books by Sunnah ibn Khalal, especially that book, and all of these books that Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah is mentioning here in these different lines here. He's mentioned these great lines. These are books, brothers and sisters, that you have to realize you have to hold on with your motive. And the reason why humiliation and disgrace has fell upon the Muslims all over the world because of their abandonment of these books in Aqidah. These great books in Aqidah that a lot of us, some of us are not aware of, or if we're aware of it, we don't put great diligence in learning from them and educating ourselves from them. Right. So, you have the great Imam, As-Sunnah, by Abu Bakr al-Barrudi, who was from the greatest students of Imam Ahmad. And you'll find that he was from the greatest of those who conveyed the knowledge of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah. I want to get too much into this. Also, from the students of Imam Ahmad is who, everyone? Sahib al-Sunnah, Imam Abu Dawud Sijistani, Sulaiman ibn Ash'af, the great Imam, which you guys know as the author of that great book, which is what? Sunnah bi Dawud. Sunnah bi Dawud. His name was Sulaiman ibn Ash'af. Abu Dawud Sijistani. He was a student of Imam Ahmad. Abu Dawud was a student of who, everyone? Of Imam Ahmad. Ahsan. Notice his kunya was also what everyone, or excuse me, I'm sorry, we already kind of went over that. I already had to be classes, excuse me. Jaded. Abu Dawud al-Sijistani, and then you have, after that was Ibn Abi Shaybah, the great Imam. Abdullah ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Shaybah. How many times have we heard that in my class on Friday? How many times have we heard it repeatedly? What's his name? Is what everyone? Abdullah ibn Muhammad or Muhammad ibn Abdullah? It's the opposite. Abdullah ibn Muhammad. I think I mentioned this maybe 15 times in my class in what? Sahih Muslim, Kitab al-Iman, Sahih Muslim on Friday, which we'll have tomorrow, inshallah. But also he has a Sunnah. He has a book titled As-Sunnah. Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, Abu Bakr bin Abi Asim, the great Imam. The Imam Abu Bakr, and this also his name is what everyone? Ahmad. So how many Ahmads do we have here? A lot. You have the majority of the students of the Imam Ahmad. You have Abu Bakr al-Athram, his name was what? Ahmad. And Abu Bakr al-Marudhi, his name, his kunya was Abu Bakr, but his name was what everyone? Ahmad. So you have Abu Bakr ibn Athram, his name was Ahmad, who's the student of Imam Ahmad. The greatest, from the greatest students of Imam Ahmad is Abu Bakr ibn Marudhi, who's also his name is what? Ahmad. Abu Dawud al-Sijistani, the great Imam, who's Sahib Sunan Abi Dawud. His name is not Ahmad. His name was Sulaiman. Sulaiman ibn Ash'af. Is it clear, everyone? Ibn Abi Shaybah. What's his name? Abdullah ibn Muhammad. Ahsan. Abdullah ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Shaybah. Al-Absi al-Kufi. And we know from his great books that the students of knowledge still to this day rely on is his book entitled, what everyone? Musannaf ibn Abi Shaybah. Musannaf ibn Abi Shaybah, which gathers all the athar of the Sahaba. Gather all the athar of the Sahaba. Let's keep going. As-Sunnah by Abu Bakr ibn Abi Asim. Abu Bakr ibn Abi Asim, what do you think his name is? Ahmed. The great Imam, Abu Bakr ibn Abi Asim. There's also have a book called As-Sunnah, and his name is also what everyone? Ahmad. You'll find that Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah put this in here, and you'll find, in order for you to remember it, majority of these great A'imma, the majority of their kunyas is Abu Bakr, and you'll find that the majority of their names at the same time is what? Ahmad. So it can put it in your memory. And I think everyone should be familiar with Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shaybah's book called As-Sunnah. From those who checked that book is Imam al-Albani, rahimahullah. Shaykh al-Albani also did check him for As-Sunnah by Ibn Abi Asim. That book is still matbu' and it's mutadawil. It's around, it's attainable by the students of knowledge. I have it in my library, it's there. That's another book you'll find that has not been taught. There's a lot of books out there of Sunnah that hasn't been taught. The problem is, it's like we said, we live in times where people's attention span is very short and they don't have patience for knowledge. What I mean by that is to finish the book completely. Go from, like we see here in this class in front of me, there's only a couple of people. But those in the past, they stayed steadfast until they finished the book. You understand, everyone? They remained firm until the book was completed. Now these days, people don't have those patience. They don't have that patience. Even the majority of people of deviation, they don't have patience to finish books. They don't. You'll find that in every time, in every place, they do not have patience to finish books completely. All of them is about entertainment, talk about what's the latest fitna, what's the back and forth between the Sunnah, all the different fitna they try to confuse the people with, and they busy themselves with that nonsense. And how many subscribers they can get, and how many likes they can get. That's what the majority of them do. But educating the people about finishing the book from beginning to end, they do not have the patience for it. And that's how you'll be able to distinguish between who's an individual who wants good for the people and who's just a mere fitna maker who's just running their mouth. Is it clear, everyone? Right. So you have Abu Bakr ibn Abi Asim in his book called As-Sunnah, which is another tremendous book. And from those who checked it, is the great Imam al-Albani rahimahullah. طيب, Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, وكتاب الرد على الجهمية. الرد على الجهمية, there's a lot of books with a refutation against the Jahmiyyah, by Abdullah ibn Muhammad al-Ju'fi. Al-Ju'fi. He was the Shaykh of Imam al-Bukhari. Have these names, familiarize yourself. If you can't memorize it, then familiarize yourself with these names. These names are names of people who are ai-imma. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon them, reward them for what they have done for the service of Allah's religion and clarifying the correct creed and belief of the Muslims, so the Muslims can return back to the honor they deserve. Because like we said, due to the fact that they've abandoned these books and the teaching and educating themselves from them, then humiliation, disgrace have fell upon the Muslims as a result of them adopting affairs that are in opposition to Allah's religion, to Allah's belief. And when the people embrace those wicked concepts or wicked beliefs, Allah humiliates them. طيب. So the refutation against the Jahmiyyah by Abdullah ibn Muhammad al-Ju'fi. Al-Ju'fi, who was the Shaykh of Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah. Also, Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, and by Imam al-Bukhari himself has a book entitled The Creation of the Actions of the Servants. Meaning the servants' actions are what everyone created. I think I answered the question to Dawood last week about that. خلق أفعال العباد. That's a book entitled by the great Imam al-Bukhari, Sahib al-Musnad, of what we know as Sahih al-Bukhari. Sahih al-Bukhari, the great Imam himself, Imam al-Bukhari, has a book, another book entitled خلق أفعال العباد. How the actions of the slaves are created. The actions of the slaves are created. So not only are we created, but also are what, everyone? Our actions are created. Why? Because our actions emanate from what? Our ability. From our ability in which Allah has given us as a qudra. So not only are we created, but our actions are created. And that's what makes human beings, is actions. Can you imagine everyone in the dunya just not saying nothing, being still? You understand, everyone? Would that be any productivity of anything? No, there has to be movement. And there has to be statements, and there has to be actions. So that's what makes human beings what? Human beings, productivity. Out being going out, in. It doesn't make any sense that the human beings would be created and everyone just doesn't do nothing. They'd just be still and just looking like a robot. That doesn't make any sense. That's the reason why we say Allah created us and we created also what, everyone? Our actions. طيب. By the great Imam al-Bukhari, he authored that tremendous book, which is also matbu', it's also copied, and it's attainable, and it's sold in those different libraries, or those book libraries. We Kitab al-Radd al-Jahmiyyah, also the refutation against the Jahmiyyah by the great Imam Uthman bin Sa'id al-Dari, who also lived during the time of the Imam al-Bukhari, as we mentioned. This Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, oh wow, and I just said this book. The great Imam Abdul Aziz al-Makki. Abdul Aziz al-Makki. Why I said subhanAllah, because I just was talking about this book the other day. I was just talking about this the other day and I was going to send it to someone. The great Kalam Abdul Aziz al-Makki. Abdul Aziz ibn Yahya ibn Abdul Aziz al-Kannani al-Makki. The one who also debated with Bishr Marisi. He also debated with Bishr Marisi. He has a tremendous book, and I have it in my library. It's called Al-Hayda. I have it. It's green. It's like a one book. It's in my library next door. That was a book. Let me keep it to myself. طيب, Sahib Al-Hayda. No, it's a reason why I'm saying that. Sahib al-Hayda. He has a book called Al-Hayda and the Refutation Against the Jahmiyyah. And if anyone wants to see it, I have it in my library. That book has never been taught. It's a tremendous book. Watch somebody, as soon as I said it, about a week from now, somebody's going to have it, right? Somebody's going to teach it. It's going to be online, someone teaching it. طيب صاحب الحيدة في الرد على الجهمية. So that's another book which was pertaining to the different types of debates that had taken place between him and also Bishop al-Marisi. Notice Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah paired it together. Because we know, if you look at your books, it says a refutation against the Jahmiyyah by who? Uthman bin Sa'id al-Darimi. He also has a refutation against who? Bishop al-Marisi. In his book, as we talk about, Shaykh al-Islam mentioned it here, in his book, which is Naqd al-Uthman bin Sa'id. There's another one called Al-Rad al-Uthman bin Sa'id ala al-Kadib al-Anid فيما افترى على الله في التوحيد. That book by Uthman bin Sa'id al-Darimi was refuting Bishop al-Marisi. Notice this book right next to it. He mentioned another author from the great Ai-Imma of the Sunnah who also refuted Bishop al-Marisi. His name was Abdul Aziz al-Makki. He also had a book that refuting who? Bishop al-Marisi. Bishop al-Marisi, which was entitled Al-Hayda. Like I said, if anyone wants time, I have the book in my library. The book is tremendous. It's a tremendous book. It's a refutation against al-Jahmiyyah. Also, the speech of the great Imam Nu'ayn ibn Hammad al-Khuza'i, the great Imam. But just before we go on to that, the great Imam, I wanted to mention a little bit of Mumayyizat from those distinguishing factors about the book called Al-Hayda. That book contained a lot of debates with Bishop al-Marisi. There was a lot of those that said, قَدْ أَثْبَتَ نِسْبَةَ الْكِتَابِ إِلَيْهِ غَيْرُ وَاحِدٍ. Majority of scholars, a lot of them have validated that book was actually ascribed to the great Imam, Abdul Aziz. From them was Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah. He actually validated that the inscription of the book was to the author, meaning it was authentically ascribed to him. It wasn't something made up. Which you'll find a lot of these people upon deviation these days, they try to criticize the inscription of those books to these imams because it will invalidate what they're upon. From them is what happened with Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari. What happened to Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari? You'll find that they try to say that the book called the Ibana, which he in his book refuted what he was upon. He refuted his own ideas and his own beliefs that were against the belief of Ahlul Sunnah. And that was his way of making Tawbah. That was one of the ways he made Tawbah. The followers of today deny that book was ascribed to him. Still to this day, they try to say that book has not been authentically ascribed to Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari. They said it's false, it's a lie. You'll find that even the Ai-Imma of the past also validated the inscription to it. No.
Shara Sunnah too, they say that it wasn't written by al-Barbahari.
That's another example. They try to say the Imam al-Barbahari also did not write the book of Sharh Sunnah. So you'll find that the people of innovations work diligently to try to say that these books have been falsely ascribed to these great Ai-Imma. Because we know that in it, or it contains in it, whatever you want, invalidating what they're upon of their so-called beliefs, and they know it will render what they're upon basis. Because once you now, their own scholar, who basically was the founder of their beliefs, once he now says it's not true, and once he said it's incorrect, they don't have nothing to stand on. So they say we have to take another route, so we have to invalidate the inscription of this book to him. And that's from them. You'll find Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari. You'll find that they say, no. That book that he wrote, Al-Ibana, has been falsely ascribed. So you'll find, number one, the ulama say, if you say, let's just say it was falsely ascribed, even though it's a lie. Because we have Al-Imam Dhahabi. He even proves it. Al-Imam Bayhaqi proved it. That it's been accurately ascribed. You have Ibn Asakir, Dimishki, also affirmed its inscription. So all these scholars are liars, and all these scholars of the past also had also slipped in regards to their. These scholars also fell into, if you want to say, tawahum or wahman or wahm. They also fell into these false inscriptions or false notions that you're saying that the book was falsely ascribed. Then you have another book by Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari. Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari has another book. It's not only that, as far as the Ibana. He has another book entitled Maqalat Islamiyyin wa Ikhtilaf al-Musallin. مقالات إسلاميين واختلاف المصلين. He has a book called مقالات إسلاميين, the statements of the Islamics. In that book, he was clarifying the correct creed of the Sunnah, refuting what he was upon before. So if you say that Al-Ibana was falsely ascribed, then he has another book. He has another book clarifying the correct Aqidah and him refuting what he was upon before. So these affairs you'll find that is from the shanshanat, or the old different plans and plots of the people of old to try to say that these books have inaccurately been ascribed to these great ai because we know that we said if it was accurately ascribed, then they wouldn't have nothing to stand on. And from those affairs also is the Christians. Where Shaykh al-Islam wrote this book entitled Jawab al-Sahih ala man baddala ad-din al-Masih, the correct answer to the one who changed the religion of Jesus. They knew in that book that Shaykh al-Islam was correct, that when these books were sent to them, they knew that the Christians, if it was proven that what he said was true, they would have nothing to stand on. And it was actually proven that Jesus never died on the cross, it was someone else. Or the affairs of the indoctrinated statements of third of three, or him being God that died, or being the Son of God to the end of it, was never from the teachings of Jesus, the Son of Mary. It was from the teachings of Paul that was introduced later. All these affairs, if it was proven, it wouldn't leave for anything for them to be upon. Wouldn't leave them for anything to stand on. So you'll find these affairs, like we said, have been known from the people of the past and from these days in order to show that these people to this day have still will not stop in order to so-called invalidate certain affairs or try to either validate it or invalidate it in order to so-called give themselves something of significance. What? We know at the end of the day where it's all false. But the next refutation is what? Kalam Nu'aym ibn Hammad, which is also from the great A'imma. Nu'aym ibn Hammad al-Khuza'i. He also has a book. He was also from the great family of Al-Marwazi. Al-A'wad al-Farid al-Marwazi. There's a lot of books. He was severe against refuting the Jahmiyyah, the people of desires. Until the point where the great Imam Ahl Sunnah Ahmad ibn Hanbal said, he indeed was from those who are trustworthy. He was also in prison. He was in prison because of the trial of the Quran being created. He was from those great ai in which also he has a title book refuting the Jahmiyyah. And we also have speech from Ahmad ibn Hanbal himself, which I think is known. We also have the Shaykh of Imam Ahmad. Who's the Shaykh of Imam Ahmad, everyone? Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, the great Imam. Ishaq ibn Rahawayh. Huh?
Is it Imam Shafi'i, the teacher of Imam?
No. Ishaq ibn Rahawayh was the Shaykh of Imam Ahmad. Just stick to the point. He was the Shaykh of who? Imam Ahmad. He was from the Mashayikh of Imam Ahmad. And also Yahya al-Naysaburi. How do I know Ishaq ibn Rahawayh was from the Mashayikh of Imam or Shuyukh of Imam Ahmad? Because he was asked a question of some of the su'alat. He said, how is Ishaq ibn Rahawayh? He said, you asking me about Ishaq ibn Rahawayh? He said, rather it should be the opposite. Out of respect, there's so respect for Ishaq ibn Rahawayh to show his great status. He said, about me, I'm asked about Ishaq ibn Rahawayh. You're asking me about Ishaq ibn Rahawayh? Meaning that it's already established. Why are you asking me about someone who's known from the great ai? This should be known with you, to let you know how great of an Imam was, rahimahullah. Let's go on. Yahya ibn Yahya al-Naysaburi also has a tremendous book. Yahya ibn Yahya al-Naysaburi. Let's keep going. وَأَمْثَالِهِمْ, and there are those who are similar to him. وَقَبْلَ هَؤُلَاء Abdullah ibn Mubarak. Abdullah ibn Mubarak, I think, is known with everyone, inshaAllah, and those who are similar to him. He says, and those from the ulama are plentiful. أشياء كثيرة. طيب, so let's go on. He says, وَعِنْدَنَا مِنَ الدَّلَائِلِ السَّمْعِيَّةِ وَالْعَقْلِيَّةِ. Let's go back to the book. وَعِنْدَنَا مِنَ الدَّلَائِلِ السَّمْعِيَّةِ وَالْعَقْلِيَّةِ. ما لا يتسع هذا الموضع لذكره وأنا أعلم أن المتكلمين لهم شبهات موجودة ولكن لا يمكن ذكرها في الفتوى فمن نظر فيها وأراد إبانة ما ذكروه من الشبه فإنه يسير. Shaykh al-Islam, he goes on to say, after he mentioned the title and the authors of all these great ai and I think all of these ai some of you are familiar with and some of them you just heard, but alhamdulillah, now the name has come and you're familiar with who these great ai these great scholars of our religion are. He says, for عندنا, so we have, he says, دلائل السمعية والعقلية. He said, we have evidences and proofs from the Sam'iyah. Sam'iyah, as we mentioned and said, means what, everyone? What does Sam'iyah mean? The Sam' does not mean necessarily hearing. Here it means what is evidences from the Kitab and Sunnah. Al-Dala'il al-Sam'iyah. Or you could call it Al-Dala'il al-Naqliyah. Or you could call it Al-Dala'il al-Khabariyah. All of them are words that are synonymous for the same meaning. So here Shaykh al-Islam says, Ad-Dala'il as-Sam'iyah. He says, and we have evidence that are aqliyah. We have evidences that are extracted from the Kitab and the Sunnah and the Revelation. And we have evidences and proofs that agree with the sound intellect. Not the intellect that has been warped by philosophy and logic, but the intellect that has been freed from all these atrocities until it's submitted to the revelation. He says, in which ما لا يتسع هذا الموضع لذكره وأنا أعلم أن المتكلمين لهم شبهات موجودة. He says, but you'll find, he says, in this context of what we're mentioning now, he said, would not be enough for us to mention all of them and mention of all the evidence and proofs. He said, due to the fact that there's too many. He says, and I'm knowledgeable and I'm aware that the mutakallimin lahum, that those who are upon falsehood in this regard, he says they have a lot of different doubts and a lot of different ambiguities that they use to confuse the people. A lot of different doubtful matters and a lot of different ambiguities that they use to cause doubt within the Muslims. He said, however, we cannot mention them in this fatwa, meaning in this book that we're saying. He said, however, for those who now read it and those who want to be acquainted with what's correct and to clarify what they said, meaning those great scholars of those different doubts that they covered and refuted, he said, for verily it's easy to attain. It's easy to what? Attain. But Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, after he mentioned these great ulama, he brought the names of these scholars as we mentioned and said. And those who followed the Salaf, meaning who followed the companions, know for sure that those scholars embarked upon the same path of trying, and rather they gave their best effort, and their efforts were successful in clarifying to the Muslims who came in the later generation what was their belief. Meaning, that light that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent to the earth was in their belief, in which these ulama clarified, meaning their books. He said, for verily, they mention the kalam of the Salaf and the Sahaba. You'll find in all these great books by these great scholars mentioning athar, starting with the companions of the Messenger of Allah. And what the companions of the Messenger of Allah believed. And those who followed them from the students of the Sahaba were the Tabi'een. What was their belief? What did they say? What was their positions to when these different atrocities of innovative practices and innovative beliefs started coming? How did they deal with it? What was their position in regards to it? What was their reactions? What was their beliefs? Were they soft? Did they go along with it and say, the fact that that some Muslims out there say that there's no pre-divine decree, there is no destiny. Oh, mashallah, there's no problem. That's all. At the end of the day, we all say we're Muslim. As you'll find that a lot of Muslims say today. Oh yeah, so what? There's Muslims out there that degrade, that ascribe deficiencies to our Lord. But at the end of the day, they say they're Muslim, so let's all come together. Allah has deficiencies in His knowledge. Allah has deficiencies in His qadr. Allah has deficiencies in His wisdom. Rather, some of them even say that Allah doesn't have wisdom. That Allah does actions with no wisdom behind it. It's just mere irada and mashi'ah. All these different atrocities are from the different matters that Muslims have said. Muslims that say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. As a result of it, these ulama came clarifying that these affairs are not acceptable. And as a result of a Muslim adopting these type of affairs will cause Allah's anger and wrath to descend upon creation. Is it clear, everyone? Fine. So that's the reason why you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam, that he said about some of those books. Some of those books, like we said, for example, some of them did have a little bit of ta'wilat. From them is Al-Asma wa Sifat by Al-Bayhaqi. I said this a couple of classes ago. I have that book in my office. It's 2 volumes. For example, the book called Al-Asma wa Sifat by the great Imam Al-Bayhaqi. Remember I told everyone a couple of classes ago, Imam Al-Bayhaqi was affected by, he had to fell into a little bit of ta'wil. He was affected by Abu Bakr ibn Fawrak. Abu Bakr ibn Fawrak, not Furak, Fawrak. They say he was from those who had affected Imam Al-Bayhaqi. Rahimallah. Imam Al-Bayhaqi has a book called Asma wa Sifat. That book, Al-Asma wa Sifat, has a little bit of ta'wilat in it. That's why you'll find from those who checked it was from the students of Shaykh Muqbil. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but Shaykh Muqbil, Rahimahullah, gave an introduction to the book. He gave an introduction to the book Al-Asma wa Sifat by Bayhaqi. Shaykh, even the great Imam Muqbil ibn Hadi al-Wadi'i, Rahimahullah, he also put in the introduction that this book called Al-Asma wa Sifat by Bayhaqi has a little bit of ta'wilat in it. So be careful. It's a good book, but it does have a little bit of what? That it has a little bit of those errors, those ta'wilat, meaning those false interpretations in Allah's names and attributes in certain regards, and certain things, and where the great Imam al-Bayhaqi had made those little mistakes. Rahimahullah, may Allah forgive him. But the book overall is a what? It's a good book. Just be on guard against those little minor mistakes in it, which one has to be what? Very careful. From those who also clarified and said that the book had the same type of little ta'wilat is the great Muhammad Aman Jami. The great Muhammad Aman Jami also said that. He said, "Yukhadu bihadar." He said that book. He said it's acquainted or it's acquired with some caution. The book is acquired, but however with some what? With some caution. Now listen to what Shaykh Muhammad Aman goes and said. He said, "لأن الكتاب فيه أحيانا بعض التأويلات وكذلك كتاب الحيدة." He said because the book sometimes it has some of those what? Ta'wilat. Some of those ta'wilat. Ta'wilat meaning what, everyone? Some of those mistakes in regards to Allah's names and what? Attributes. By not giving the correct meaning or giving the correct position in regards to Allah's names and attributes. طيب. From those books also was a great book called Al-Hayda. The book called Al-Hayda by Abdul Aziz al-Makki, which is, like I said, is another book that I have. It's in my library. It's one book, Al-Hayda. However, the great Imam Shaykh Muhammad Aman Jami said that book Al-Hayda, notice he says, قد يتأثر أحيانا في أثناء المناظرة ويوافق المعتزلة على أن الأسماء لا تدل على الصفة كما فعل ذلك في السمع والبصر. He said, still one should be cautious with the book Al-Hayda. He said, because he became affected sometimes during that debate with Bishop Marisi. He said, in which he agreed with the Mu'tazila that the names of Allah does not indicate the adjective or the description. Meaning it's a name without any meaning to it. Is it clear what I'm saying? That Allah is Sami' but he has no Sam'. That Allah is all hearing but he does not have, Allah has the name Sami' but he's not all hearing. Which doesn't make any sense. But at any rate, you'll find that Al-Hayda, that he slipped into those different things throughout the debate with Bishop Marisi. Which is to let you know that Bishop Marisi was very what? Cunning in his debate with the people of Bid'ah, in which you'll find that the devils, from the unseen devils in which they used to inspire upon his tongue. Is it clear, everyone? طيب. From those is بعض النسخ الحموية ترجمة موجزة. In some of the copies of the Hamawiyyah, you'll find that they actually gave a translation and a good summary, not translation, excuse me everyone, but a good summary of familiarizing the people with these great ai and showing their great status in our religion. And from them is the commentary of Abdur Razzaq Hamzah. It's crazy because that's the opposite of my name, right? Abdur Razzaq Hamzah, who also has a great commentary upon his book, Hamawiyyah, where he gives a little history and background of all these great ai*imah that Shaykh al-Islam mentioned. And from those who also authored the book that we just mentioned and what we're reading from right now. So let's keep moving. Al-Aqliyah. So notice Shaykh al-Islam, go to your book and read it. وعندنا, you have your book?
This is my first time in class now.
Yeah.
I came for that.
That's
I'm working at this time usually.
from الدلائل السمعية. الدلائل السمعية, everyone. What does the mean of سمعية? As I said, سمعية means here in this context does not mean what is done by hearing. It means here was evidences that come in the wahy. Evidences that come from the wahyain, from the kitab and sunnah. It does not mean sama', where it means linguistically what is pertaining to the hearing. No. Sam'iyya means what came in the revelation, what was revealed in the kitab and sunnah. And it also, what is another word that's synonymous to that, which is what? Naqliyya. Or you could say khabariyya. So you could say al-dalail al-sam'iyya, or al-dalail al-naqliyya, or al-dalail al-what? Al-khabariyya. They all mean evidences that came through the what? That was conveyed through what? Through what, everyone? The revelation. That's what it means. Notice he goes on to say, wal-aqliyya. He says, and also evidences that agree with the sound intellect. Because we know that the evidences from the Kitab and Sunnah agrees with the sound intellect. Rather, the intellect, as we know, brothers and sisters, came in order to submit to the revelation, not to oppose it. So the sound intellect submits to the revelation. The sick intellect rejects the revelation. And it makes the revelations subjected to his judgment. Is it clear, everyone? And that's what happened with the philosophers. And that's what happened to a lot of the Muslims, where they made the revelation, that it's made it subjected to their minds and to its dictation. That the mind and the intellect is the one that dictates for the revelation of what's so-called accepted or rejected, which is absolutely incorrect. The aql or the intellect was made to submit to Allah's revelation. And that's what we mentioned and said, what Shaykh al-Islam said. The evidences and proofs that were extracted from the Kitab and Sunnah and also from the Aqliyat. When we say Aqliyat, meaning the evidences that are extracted from the sound intellect. From the sound intellect that has been tampered with. He said it's a book in which has not been authored, in which you'll find that it's remembrance, or meaning that the evidences that we can bring, he said we cannot bring it here. It's too many. He said the book will probably go into maybe 10 volumes. And we used to bring all these evidences and proofs. He said for that reason, he said, مَا لَا يَتَسِعُ هَذَا الْمَوْضِعِ لِذِكْرِهِ. He said this place in which we mentioned it here in this context, he said it's not enough that we mention it. It's not enough. Because it'd be too much what? Too much that we would have to bring. Then he goes on to say, وَأَنَا أَعْلَمُ أَنَّ الْمُتَكَلِّمِينَ لَهُمْ شُبَهَاتٍ. I am very aware, knowledgeable, that those who've been affected, he says they have a lot of doubtful matters, in which a lot of Muslims can easily be fooled by. And it can instill doubt in their hearts concerning their belief. He says he wanted to mention those different types of doubtful matters in which you'll find that the people falsehood possess and that they can bring. Because Shaykh al-Islam was موقف فذ جدا عند مناقشة جهابذة علماء الكلام. As you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam in Taymiyyah, where he stood out, is that he used to debate with some of these people. And he used to destroy them. He would demolish them. He says, especially from the heads of those who are affected by rhetoric and logic. He used to debate with them. And at the same time, you'll find even he used to debate with them, he will feel sorry for them. He will feel sorry for them. And he will be what? Concerned with them. Even though they were what? Even though he would destroy them, destroy their ideologies. But based upon that, he would still feel sorry for them. And that's why a lot of people you'll find upon falsehood and people who are engrossed in sin and engrossed in filth, and who are confused and who are doubtful, you feel sorry for them. Even though you know the thing are upon and you demolish their falsehood, in which the people of the Sunnah do, you demolish their falsehood so no one else will be infected, because you don't want the sickness spreading. But at the same time, those people who you think and you look at and who Allah has bestowed your favor upon you, and look at those who Allah has not, you will feel real what? Sorry for them. Even though you'll find that they probably feel sorry for you, but you're looking at them like, I'm glad I'm not tested with what you tested with. Especially in regards to my religion and being doubtful in it. Those affairs are very scary, and this is what he was mentioning. He said, وَهُوَ يُشْفِقُ عَلَيْهِمْ أَنْ أَحْيَانًا لَوْ كُنْتُ أَنَا مَكَانَكُمْ لَحَكَمْتُ عَلَى نَفْسِي بِالْكُفْرِ. To the point where Shaykh al-Islam said, he used to say about them, if I was in their place, he said, I would have judged upon myself with disbelief. Why did he say that? Meaning that I'm not ignorant. If I had those doubts, I would say that I was what? That I was outside the fold because I'm not what? Ignorant. I'm very knowledgeable about their doubts. Meaning I have knowledge. He said, however, they are what? Ignorant. And we're just merely what? Blindfolded. So that's the reason why Shaykh al-Islam said what he said. So let's go on. Let's go on. وكان شيخ الإسلام كثيرا ما يكرر في أثناء مناقشتهم قصة الإسرائيلي أن رجلا كان قبلهم رغصه الله مالا فقال لبنيه أنا لما حضر. So for that reason you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah that he used to mention during his discussion with them the story of an Israeli, the one who was from Bani Israel, a man who did an act of kufr. He did an act of kufr. Rather, he did an act that it necessitated that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has some deficiency. But he did not know that. Listen to this. There was a man that was before you, meaning from the people of Israel. رَغَصَهُ اللَّهُ مَالًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him wealth. And he said to his children, he says, when death comes to me, لَمَّا حُضَرْ أَيَّ أَبٍ كُنْتُ لَكُمْ قَالُوا خَيْرَ أَبٍ. He said, for what type of father was I for you? He said, you were the best father. قَالَ فَإِنِّي لَمْ أَعْمَلْ خَيْرًا قَطْ. Verily, I did not do any good at all. Verily, I did not do any good at all. فَإِذَا مُتُّ فَأَحْرِقُونِي. If I die, he said, then burn me. Burn my ashes. That was a problem. You hear that? فَأَحْرِقُونِي. We know that burning one's body after death is what? It's impermissible. Cremation, they call it, or being cremated. So first thing in the hadith, فَأَحْرِقُونِي. Burn me. ثُمَّ إِسْحَقُونِي. Then separate my ashes. It says separate them. ثُمَّ ذَرُونِي فِي يَوْمٍ عَاصِفٍ. And let it be spread in a very windy, violent, windy day. Based upon that, what did he do? Based upon this is what, everyone? What did he do? He thought in his mind he was glorifying Allah. But at the same time, it was what? Rendering Allah with some type of what? Deficiency, even though he didn't perceive it. It's as if Allah is not able to bring him back together. So, here in this hadith, he thought he was glorifying Allah, but at the same time, he was what? Ascribing to Allah what? Deficiency. Based upon his great ignorance. But he thought he was what? Doing something good. And he thought he was what? Glorifying Allah. But at the same time, he was what? Not realizing that he was doing something incorrect. So he says, ثُمَّ ذَرُّونِي فِي يَوْمٍ عَاصِفٍ فَفَعَلُوا. He says, spread me in a violent windy day. فَفَعَلُوا. They did it. Now listen to this. Allah gathered him back together. فَجَمَعَهُ اللَّهُ. Which is to show you the glorification and the great strength of Allah, the ability of Allah to do that. If you're tired, Shaykh, just go to sleep. Just go home and get some rest. He said, فَجَمَعَهُ اللَّهُ فَقَالَ مَا حَمَلَكَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathered him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, even though he was full aware of it, what made you do this? Even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was already aware. Now listen to what he said. مَخَافَتُكَ مَخَافَتُكَ. Out of fear of you. He said, فَتَلَقَّاهُ بِرَحْمَتِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala received him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what? Put his mercy upon him. He said, يقول, I'm afraid that Allah, that if he's able, in another narration, there's another narration which says that if my Lord is able, so that's deficiency. To say if my Lord is able, deficiency. If you bury me, Allah will punish me a punishment in which he has never punished anyone else before. So Shaykh al-Islam uses this story, what comes in the Sahih, and Sahih al-Bukhari, of what happened with some of the children of Bani Israel, or one of the children from Bani Israel, that a man can be excused due to his ignorance in the usul of the religion. He can be excused. And that a person is excused in that regard until the evidences and proofs have been what? Has been established. لأن هذا الإسرائيلي خاف من الإسراف. Because this person who Bani Israel, he was afraid that he what? He was afraid from transgressing the bounds, even though he did unknowingly. But still, his intention was to fear his Lord. For that reason, you'll find Sahih Bukhari, he said with the delil that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed how great his ability is to him. So this individual had himself burnt, and at the same time he had his ashes scattered. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him back easily. Without any what? Difficulty, to show the great ability of our Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for that reason, it says in Sahih Bukhari, which is in the narration, it said, what made you do that? Meaning Allah was checking his intention. So that shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the day of resurrection, is checking the people's what? Belief, and Allah will check your what? He will check your intention. So what made you do that? Even though Allah already knew. He said, out of fear of you. Until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala received him with his mercy. For hence, a person can gather between fear of Allah and Iman in Allah based upon this hadith and still be ignorant of his Lord. Is it clear? He can have khashya of Allah, Iman in Allah, and he can even be in that same regard, still be what? Ignorant. Ignorant of what? Of the foundations of the religion. Ignorant. And to the point where we know that Allah's perfect ability is something that's ma'noom min ad-deen bid-darura. That's something that has to be known by extreme necessity, that you know that your Lord is complete in his ability. That's something that has to be immediately taught and educated with a Muslim when you embrace the religion of Islam. That you have no doubt in the ability of Allah to do that. So this individual had ignorance of the complete ability of Allah, and that Allah Ta'ala is able to gather him no matter what condition he died in what state he died, that Allah Ta'ala can bring him back. And until he even told his children to do that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala excused him if he forgave him. That's why you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam used to, in Taymiyyah, mentioned in a lot of sittings, mentioning this specific hadith. How certain people can be what? Excused due to ignorance. That's the reason why when we go to these countries, such as Egypt, or we go to countries where the majority of people are upon the aqidah of the Shaykh. And you might find certain Muslims that are worshipping graves. And we know that Nallah Fajr Islam. That's the general ruling. Someone make dua to the dead, you're outside of order of Islam. However, these people have been what? Affected. By who? Evil scholars. For that reason, you'll find that we say that these people are what? Excused due to ignorance. You do not go to the country and you land at the airport and you immediately start saying, look at all these kuffar here who are upon the aqidah of Ish'ariyah. You understand? Look at all these kuffar, like, make a tawaf around those graves. Kafir. All these people. Is it clear, everyone? That's the reason why you'll find that these narrations shows that in certain instances, of course, the people are excused due to what? Ignorance. You used to ask any of these Muslims right now who's doing that. Make a tawaf around the grave and make a dua to the dead. Do you believe in the day of resurrection? Do you believe? They say, of course I do. Of course I do. Of course I do. Of course I do. However, they've been affected by what? Evil scholars that have affected them. Right? They said, this is what Tawheed is. And what those people, and this is their famous statement, those Wahhabis, what they telling you, that's shirk. Because that's their famous statement. Those Wahhabis, what they telling you, that's shirk. What we're telling you, this is pure Tawheed. Pure Tawheed. And people in their cities, in their locale, who do they find trustworthy in their religion except who's considered what? A scholar. A person that's educated, or a person that's attained a certain type of degree, and they put their trust in them. And they trust them and say, and we trust the worthiness in regards to their religious affairs. And they tell them this, they become affected easily. So that's the reason why you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam used to mention what? These type of narrations. So the last thing we'll mention before we wrap up. So Shaykh al-Islam said, he says, I am knowledgeable that these people of rhetoric who've been affected by philosophies who are spreading these doubtful matters amongst the Muslims, he said they are plentiful. He said they are so many doubts, so many different ambiguities that could be spread amongst the Muslims, rather it's spread amongst them and cause them to be doubtful about the religion of Islam. He said there's a lot of them. He said, well, we cannot mention all of them in this book. However, if you was to look in it, you will become well aware of what the ulama mentioned in their clarification of those different what? Doubts. So this is to show you that what everyone, that Shaykh al-Islam was very, very knowledgeable of the different doubts that the people who so-called ascribe themselves to the belief of the Ash'ariyah and what they're upon. And that they try to utilize the so-called title, we're trying to glorify Allah. You'll find that they use a lot of different statements that in order to draw the people towards them, they will use different statements, but not realizing what's behind them. We want to glorify Allah. Allah doesn't resemble this, and Allah doesn't resemble that. And Allah doesn't resemble the creation. Of course Allah doesn't resemble the creation. But at the same time, you do not negate His attribute and go to the extremes where you fall into transgressing in what's the proper belief. He says, hence, Shaykh al-Islam was very what? Knowledgeable about this. And that's why he was encouraging the students of knowledge to referring them back to those books so they can attain the proper belief and be properly educated to know how to decipher between or distinguish between those statements that are correct and the different things that they bring that aids those different statements that they what use. Because some of them use it in the front, but behind it, once you investigate it, is something intended behind it, something different. And that's what he was referring to students of knowledge, that you need to be on guard and be acquainted and be very knowledgeable about these affairs because they're widespread amongst the Muslims all around the world, everywhere. They're widespread. And if you do not armor yourself with the proper knowledge, not reading the proper books, not studying the proper way, not being educated under the proper teachers, those who have truly have experience in these type of fields, those who have proper experiences with dealing with different types of fitan and situations throughout history, and are considered, if you want to say for lack of better words, generals that have earned their stripes, that have been in the field of wars, and I mean not wars as far as armies and tanks. I'm talking about field in regards to da'wah and different shubahat and different types of fitan that have come and have gone, and that they survived. And when we say survive, meaning they're still on the truth, even though that wind of fitan had came, that they still are upon what they're upon. They never changed. That you see them still calling to what's correct, and you see them still calling to what they were upon years ago. Nothing has never changed. Rather, you'll find they're still upon it. If not, they have increased more in diligence and call to what they call them to. He said that's what you need to what? Those are the people you need to cling to. Cling to those who survived, not to those who are being destroyed, or those who are calling to what's right, but they're not educated. They're not seasoned yet. They're not seasoned. They haven't earned their stripes yet. And those are the things that we also tell our youth, our brothers that are new in the dawah and that are coming up. You have to earn your stripes. How you earn your stripes is when fitna comes and trials and tribulations, you survive. That's how you earn your stripes. And you only earn it so when affairs or trials and tribulations that are severe and very difficult come. Then we see who you are. That's how you earn your stripes. In every time and every place. And you'll find what they do as far as in regards to the different situations and different positions they take, you'll know whether or not they're strong or whether or not they're what? Other than that. So those are the type of people that you'll find the Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah that he what? Refers to. He refers to saying those people who, those books that I just mentioned to you, referring you back to them, read them. Be educated. Referring you back to those books so you can be well acquainted to what's correct. So when these winds come, you know how to deal with them. You know that they're calls of the devils. Calls of the devils. And when we say calls of the devils, meaning the unseen shayateen. Because they are plentiful out here. There's so many calls of the devil out here. In so many forms, brothers and sisters, that you have to be very well acquainted with these books so you can be on guard and armor yourself and protect yourself. Because like we said, the army of the shayateen, not only are they plenty in number now, they are plenty in number from the shayateen, from the jinn and the ins. Yes, they are. From the unseen devils and from the devils of the human beings. They are so many now. Plenty in number, and they come with different types of doubts and confusion and tricks. If you're not educated, you can easily fall into them. And I've seen so many people from the Muslims fall into it. In so many ways, whether it be in witchcraft, whether it be in magic, whether it be in Sufiya, whether it be the belief that Allah is everywhere, because all these are satanic calls. Or believing in zodiac signs, or belief in the different atrocities of for example, manifestation now that has been widespread, the manifestation new dawah now, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. The practice of magic, sorcery, belief in bad luck, and the list goes on and on of the different calls of the devil. And the call of philosophy, logic, magic, and during the holidays is also a form of the call of the devil. Birthdays, Christmas, all those are calls of the shayateen. Behind it is calls of the devils, of the unseen devil, that people easily fall into these days. Easily. Once Christmas, especially around this time comes, you'll find of so many different people who still have that weakness and those inclinations. Not realizing the polytheistic satanic beliefs that are behind it and the traps that Shaitan has laid for a person to fall into it. So be well educated, and that's what Shaykh al-Islam is mentioning here. He said, go back to these books so you can know these different types of what? Doubts. So you can be educated, so you do not be what? Fall into it. But sometimes from the common folk, from the people of Bid'ah, Shaykh al-Islam used to what? Find excuses for them. For the common folk. The callers, something different. But in regards to the common folk, or those who are what? Pardon the excuse due to their lack of knowledge. So we'll stop here, inshallah. And also we want to mention in regards to later on how to deal with the people of the callers and the people from the common folk, how to deal with them. Because a person has to be very careful, because if you hang around someone a lot, you can be affected by them. And a lot of people forget this. Who you are around constantly, you will be affected by. Whether it be in a positive way, if it's positive, then it's positive. And if it's negative, it'll be negative. Just know for sure, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made every human being, no matter who it is. You've been created to be affected by who you're around. I don't care how much you say out of your mouth, I'm strong, I'm strong, I'm strong. I don't care. You're still a human being. A human being will be affected by who he's around constantly. And you will find that how many people we heard be around somebody constantly, they start speaking words like them. And I can tell when someone's hanging around someone, when they start talking, I'll be like, I've done this and I've tested certain people by this. I'll listen to their speech and they'll say certain statements. And I'll say, you hang around so-and-so, don't you? He said, how'd you know that? Because you sound just like them. You talk just like them. For people who are intelligent, they listen to people's statements. I can tell they hanging around so-and-so. And how many people from the Sunnah, we can listen to certain individuals, and we know that you're hanging around the wrong crowd based upon how you speak it. You start speaking nonsense and rubbish and filth and affairs pertaining to what is in opposition to the Sunnah, or what we could tell who your friends are. You start speaking like them. You start talking like them. And we know who you're around. Is it clear, everyone? As long as you're a human being in this world, you will be affected by who you're constantly around. If it's good, then it's good. If it's positive, then it's positive. If it's negative, it's negative. And if it's evil, it will be evil. And who you choose as a partner, who you marry, also will have an effect on you. If they're not praying, more than likely you will not be praying. They will bring you down. And if they are people who are positive and strong, they will also pull you along and make you strong. Who you're around will be what? Has an effect on you. So be careful and be very, very cautious of who you take as a friend or who you're constantly around, so you can be what? Influenced in a positive way, and what will pull you and be a reason for your success in this world and hereafter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq in that regard. Tafaddal, Zayd, I'm sorry.
And then like this, like the statement from the South, what Imam said,
There's a lot of
as far as
statements.
person may hide his innovation, but he can't hide his companion.
Absolutely. It's the Imam al-Awza'i statement. من خفيت علينا بدعته لم تخفى علينا ألفته. Whose ever bid'ah is hidden for us, but his friends who he's around is not hidden from us. You might hide your innovation or your inclination, but who you deal with, we are very aware. And I am very aware of who hangs around who these days. And a lot of people don't think I am, but I am very, very well familiar with who hangs around who these days. Even in regards to business. And I'm saying what I'm saying for a reason. Anyway, any regards to anything else? Anything? Any questions about the lesson?
Next week, are we going to go over what you mentioned about the companions? Or
Tomorrow I have this book.
next week, you said?
Oh, and Hamawiyyah? No, we're just going to continue what comes up. Today's Thursday. So we're going to continue Wednesday. We have book Wednesday. Yeah, we have a class Wednesday and Thursday. Yeah, we didn't have a class yesterday. No, we just continue with Shaykh al-Islam and Shaykh Hamawiyyah. If you come, just bring a Hamawiyyah book. Or bring the method. Bring the method. Anything else, anyone? Stop here. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.